Yeah. Thanks for the prep work, Amanda.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
So we are on 7,000. 7,000. So the last time we got through 6,000. So now on 7,000. So I went through all of them. So, and I sent everybody the, did everybody get what I sent?
Yep.
Okay. I know I need my bigger computer. My two big screens.
That's what I like.
Yeah. So we'll start with 7,000. So that first one, 7,000 goals. The JPS policy and the MTSBA policy are the same. So I would vote to mark it as reviewed.
That's when we just say we reviewed it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
7,008, the model was removed. That's the non-resident student attendance agreement, tuition, and transportation costs. It looks like it was removed like in March. For model, so it's no longer a model policy out there.
The non-resident student attendance, that one?
Yeah.
That one's interesting because we updated that one specifically for preparation for out of district.
Yeah, and then they got rid of it.
Well, it still says in here, tuition rate shall be determined annually consistent with Montana law and approved by the board, so that's gone, right?
Yeah, you can't charge tuition. Maybe that's why.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Can we just delete that policy? Is that what we need to do now?
It looks like it. It looks like that would be what we should probably do.
So we just adopted it December last year, huh?
I think not.
No, that's okay.
That's what we get for trying to.
Didn't
Be on top of
even, didn't even
things.
make it to a review cycle.
Now, when I searched the MTSBA website, it looks like it was removed in March. Again, it'd be nice if they like timestamp those kind of things, but
So what's the required action again to remove policy? A single vote?
It's just a single reading.
But it does need to go to the board for a policy.
So recommend to remove 7,008.
Okay.
so 7110 is the same as model, but like there's weird brackets in there. And then in the last sentence of it, will may is included in brackets. I think it just needs to be cleaned up.
They both have that.
Yeah. But I think we're supposed to like choose will or may.
Yeah.
And then like before, like when the business manager / district clerk is in brackets, I think we're supposed to choose there, like if we want to include that.
Oh,
Would that be district clerk for us?
I'm the same person as both, but I
Yeah.
have a slash in my title.
Oh, you
so,
do?
Yeah.
well, we could rewrite it like that and just take the brackets
Just take
off.
brackets.
and
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of,
And then may provide open-ended or?
I would say may. That way you're not required to have a staff member.
Yeah, I'd say nay.
So then 7121, 7210, and 7215, our policies are all the same as model.
Review.
So budget adjustments, revenues, and obligations and loans.
Anything in the policy to highlight, just of note, Amanda, or from an administrative standpoint, just make sure we're doing everything?
No, in these I didn't really see anything like that, like it seems, I didn't, there wasn't anything that jumped out at me on this. There is on some other ones where I was like, oh, are we doing this, but on these, nothing jumped out at me.
Okay.
So 7220,
We don't have that.
We don't have that.
we don't have that one, and that's the use of federal Title I funds.
Is that Army required then?
Mhm. And then there's the 7220P on use of federal Title I funds methodology. That's it's also required.
They have those options when they, are we a district with one school?
We have two, don't we?
Because it's elementary and high school, is that how they,
I think so, isn't it?
not one building, but one,
So there are two districts.
Yeah.
two districts, but it says the Joliet School District is a district with a single school.
Yes, we're a single building.
So we're a
Single
single
school.
school, so that would be option one.
Yeah, so we'll match this up with the title grant. So when we fill out the title grant every year, we select, that. I just wanna make sure that I'm.
Or we have districts with multiple schools per grade spans.
I think it'd be like Billings is multiple schools for elementary.
No, I think we're option 3.
Really?
Because we're Joliet schools, we have two separate districts.
Yeah, but not.
Well, so ESSA requires us to track expenditures per school. So when I do the TFS, there's a school code for elementary, for middle school.
In
and
middle
high
school, that's where we have the 2 schools within the
Within
elementary
the single
district,
budget,
there's 2
but
schools.
for ESSA reporting, we have to track, we have
It's
to
not
report.
buildings, it's not building.
Yeah, so we do have to report for, actually, everybody has to report for ESSA now. Unless you're strictly a K-5. It's just elementary. Because then all the students are in the same school. Now, if you're K-8, you'd have 2 schools.
Interesting, okay.
So what option are we? 3.
Yeah, option number 3. And then do we have to update this one every year with the number of students that we have?
Yeah, it's got the number of students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Money.
That changes so much.
I know, eventually that's gonna be,
I wonder what the rule on that is. Like, do you report at the beginning of school and that's your number, or
Well, and then the title grant is due September 30th every year, and then it just preloads your number
From like,
from last year's enrollment.
from last year's?
Yeah,
so then I wonder if that's what the number that you would use
they
here.
were put in there.
Well, but then it wants your salary and benefits.
Mhm.
Is that from the year before too then?
I mean, it wants everything. Professional development, technology, lunch, library supplies, transportation.
It wants the budget, essentially.
Why that would be in the policy?
Yeah, that
Yeah, that's weird.
doesn't make any sense.
C clerk, completion.
Look at TFS.
Nobody's ever gonna. They do?
Well, and we track all of those things, but again, it changes every year. So maybe this is just one of those policies we need to add to our review every year.
Yeah, annual review.
And maybe we do it in August when we do the budget, so that we have the salary numbers. And then we can kind of do the allocation per student. And then we'll have kind of a guess of enrollment at the budget meeting.
You know, and it does change, you know, it changes the first week of school, the
Well, it
second. you
changes if we have a
leave,
teacher leave,
some- a new
or if we
teacher
have to
comes.
hire a new aide.
So it's gonna be,
Yeah,
you start with a number that's close.
yeah, and we have, you know, our best guess numbers when we do
Or,
budgets.
no, Felicia, maybe it's just because it says the allocated number.
Is that just the title funds?
I think I think that's just the allocation that we get.
And it could be, because we have, well, but our title is all, but when we get our title, initial title grant, it lists the allocations per school.
Mhm.
And then it rolls the high school district money into the elementary automatically.
Mhm.
And we have those numbers fairly early.
Yeah, I don't think this will be that. I mean, it's weird that you're gonna put like the level of specificity in there, but they will not be hard to find
Well, and it-
in any grants.
yeah, when we do but we're not doing our budget, our numbers until September.
Yeah, so this will
When
just
we're
be probably
figuring
in
how many-
October.
Yeah, how many title students we have, what teachers are needed for that.
Yeah.
Our costs for supplies and things like that. So
Yes.
maybe a review every
That just depends on
September.
October, probably October, because if it's due September 30th, I mean, we got it in early this year.
Yeah,
But get it done, get it approved.
Yeah.
Then they spit it back, so then in October we update the policy. Got it.
So then we're adopting both of those, right?
I think so, yeah, they're required, yeah.
And then 7225 crowdfunding proposals, we also don't have that one. It's not a required policy.
Is that like a GoFundMe thing?
Well, I don't know. I wondered, like, you know, we have that upcoming thing at the volleyball game on Thursday. I wondered if that would fall into this.
If you, like,
Doesn't really
But it
define it
says-
in here, does it?
no, it says the author, so it's almost like you have to, you're writing a request for funds to the public or something, you know, to, I think there's a crowdfunding app. It's almost like GoFundMe.
Yeah.
I don't think we do that.
You know, we don't do anything that, it talks down here about on the platform website, we don't do any of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we're trying to get away from that kind of stuff, right?
I think we got that one over.
Yeah. If we're trying to like get away from this kind of stuff and redirecting people who want to donate to the Jayhawk Fund, then this probably isn't necessary.
Yeah, I don't see any real reason.
Okay, so then the next one that we don't have is 7231 federal impact funds. And on the table of contents for the 7000 series, it shows an R next to it, as if it's required, but then on the policy itself, that R isn't there. So I don't know if it's required or not. And is it required, is it applicable to us? Because it's talking about American Indian children.
So,
So I didn't know if it was just for,
yeah, so impact aid is, money that typically, goes to schools that have a lot of federal land. So reservations, national parks, things like that. So we don't receive any impact aid because we don't have any federal lands, because there's no tax, there's no property tax associated with it, so they get federal impact aid money, but we don't receive any of
We
that.
can let that
So-
go.
so we wouldn't need that, 'cause it's
Yeah.
not applicable to us.
We don't
Okay,
get any impact aid.
so 7231 and 7231P are not applicable. So then that brings us to 7251. Our policy is the same as model, except for model includes this new section of with a vote. So this is the disposal and sale of school district property. So like everything that we have is the without a vote. And then they included a with a vote section.
I think the with a vote is, real property. So like a building,
Mhm.
things like that.
Real or personal property.
We don't have a lot of that kind of stuff to sell.
Yeah, we've never run an election to vote to this, to give, and it depends, you know, they probably had to do that with Edgar, with the school in Edgar, and potentially with the Boyd School.
We should be able to leave that off, or do you think it should be left off? I don't know if we need it. We need to buy that, not sell it.
I know, right?
We're not selling any of our buildings, just leave it.
Did you look up that MCA?
No,
Does that define like what
we have,
property needs to go to a vote?
On ours, there's 3604, but 603 we don't. We don't have 604, we got 9.
Yeah, it almost seems like with a vote, with a popular vote, it's just related to buildings and
Mm-hmm.
like real estate. Hmm.
So when you guys tore down the old school, did you have to have voter approval for that?
Nope.
You weren't getting rid of the property, just,
We just took it
which is
brick by brick.
basically condemned anyway.
It was condemned, yeah. I mean, it was a condemned building and they were using it as a locker room for the football player, and that's where the concession stand was.
Yeah.
And there's special ed classes in it, and it was condemned. No, just.
I just don't know at any point in time we would need that, since we utilize all of our buildings.
I'd say skip it.
So move on and
Now let's do it as review.
reviewed and
Okay.
7260 is the same.
I like those.
Yeah. 7310 is the same. $73.20, there's a little bit of differences there. And this is the one where, I just wanted to make sure that we were all like on the same page there. So 7320, authorization and control. So this is where it says like the superintendent can, spend money up to a certain dollar amount. And ours has $80,000. So, that,
That'd be like the paving project. Yeah, I think we probably have some backstory here. This has been increased since I've been here. Under Allison.
Well, once you hit a certain amount, everything has to go out for bid. And that 80,000 is a
yeah,
good
that's really
threshold.
somewhere else in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
That's a good threshold, because there are projects that are up there, and if you have to, if you put $10,000 in there, we'd be going to the board for any networking, the doors, everything. And so
What was it at before you guys moved it to 80?
I was not here when we moved it. It's always been 80 since I've been here.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't remember. Yeah, 2013 is the last time, so.
That's state statute for a project, right? Because we're the same for the county.
Yeah, once you go above 80, you have to do the bid process, because we're governmental.
Is that the only thing that's different then?
No, so I just wanted to make sure that we were, where we're supposed to be on that 80,000 number. And then, bids and contracts, so the first sentence under that one, it just reads a little bit different. It says the same thing. It just reads a little bit different. And then like in the middle of that paragraph, the model policy references 18-4-307 MCA.
Which which we have at the bottom of ours, it's just not
Mhm.
included in the paragraph. Do you think it has to be in the paragraph?
They say the same thing. It just reads a little bit different.
So you think it reads okay the way we have it, so we just leave it?
I think so. I mean, it says the same thing,
Mhm.
just reads a
I
little
just
different.
leave it the way it is, we don't have to modify it. There's no major changes.
So then the next change, there's the, in hours, there's like the indented text. And the two sentences that precede that, the superintendent will establish bidding and contract award procedures. And then in the model policy, it includes some additional language. I don't know if it's necessary, it just expands upon what we already have written.
So this language they're including in here has to do with the Davis-Bacon Act. Any construction projects, we are, like when we do our ESSER reporting, if we've done any construction projects, it asks for that Davis-Bacon Act, did you comply, and blah, blah, blah. It just kind of helps the contractors be on notice that you still have to comply with all the federal,
The non-discrimination laws, is that what, yeah.
yeah. And the wage laws and things like that.
But like the italicized text is all the same. And then that cooperative purchasing language is all the same.
So just that highlighted area then?
Mm-hmm, yeah, does yours show, do you see the highlighted too?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So we just replace, put that in instead of ours? It's not addition.
I don't know, is it necessary?
I think it's a protection for the school.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm kind of getting the sense that applicable non-discrimination laws needs to be included in the bid, and we don't have that.
We do put it in our language when we put the bid out there, but it's good to have policy to back it up.
Yeah. I would agree with that, I just don't know what the best way to move forward, is it just to adopt model?
We just adopt model and tell them what.
Adopt model and put that 80,000 in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that said, that bids and contracts, that paragraph under there, ours says the same thing, it's just worded a little bit different. Okay, so adopt model on that one.
7320 model.
Mm-hmm. Um, 7325, accounting and system design, that is the same. 7326, documentation and approval of claims, that is the same. 7329, is different. So like the dollar amounts and whatnot, it's different, and then there's just some additional language in the model. I didn't even highlight things in this one just because there was enough different.
Here's the great thing, we don't cash. Our auditors are like, don't do it. So,
So is that a policy we just eliminate?
I mean, it's good to have it in case sometime down the road, we wanna utilize it, or our auditors
How does
do
a
not.
petty cash system work? We just keep $2,000 in cash on hand in a cash box and then.
Yeah, and a teacher comes in, I need $50 for ice cream for a field trip.
Yeah, I
It's just,
know.
it's a nightmare.
No,
It's a
Well,
nightmare.
and the recommended one, is only 350 and ours was 2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
I know, it's
Well, it's
something
great
that was like.
for credit cards, but
yeah, and now we have that control system in place where it's not cash, cause cash is a nightmare.
And you still have the ability, I know you don't like it, if a teacher buys something, brings you a receipt to reimburse it.
Yeah, but reimbursement is different than
That's
handing them
different.
cash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. As long as you
Just get rid of the
reimburse,
policy.
you can do that.
Yeah, at this
Right,
point in
okay.
time, we do not use petty cash, and we haven't since I got here.
So could we just remove it or remove all of that and say that JPS does
Say we
not
just-
utilize
yeah.
petty cash funds?
Well,
We just
just,
get rid of the
just
policy,
take the policy and
because
then
we
be
just
done
don't
with
use
it.
it.
You know, let's save it in case. No, you don't ever want to do it.
No.
I don't think you
Yeah.
ever
Yeah,
want
it's
to
like,
do it
oh, we
again.
don't have
It's
a
like,
policy for petty cash, it makes
We
it
don't have
very
it.
clean.
All right. 7330 payroll procedures, that one is the same. And then there's the form 7330 NF1, that's the same. 7332 advertising in schools. So there's a couple of things
Mm,
that I would like to change in ours, so like get rid of that, et cetera. We had talked about that at, our last policy meeting, but that just kinda,
it's vague.
yeah. So get rid of et cetera, and then I have highlighted there, in keeping with the contemporary standards of good taste, I like the model policy where it has community standards of good taste.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care about being contemporary, I
no,
would rather
it is.
be with the community, standards of
Yeah,
good taste.
I agree with that.
you just want to adopt the whole thing.
Everything else is the same, except for those two words.
Did they remove et cetera from the model?
Yeah, et cetera isn't in the model, and,
Okay, So we-
community is in the place of contemporary.
so we can update the model.
Yeah.
Anything in here to keep an eye on with our advertising program?
No, actually, like, when I was reading through it, it kind of like talks about, what we're already doing, like with the gym signs
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. You know, we're not doing
Seems pretty open, honestly.
television and radio. We're not like decorating buses.
We
I
used
thought
to,
that was
for
interesting.
state meets,
For what?
for state meets.
Oh,
People would pay to decorate a bus?
No, but the parents would, and I don't know if that'd be considered,
Probably not.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
yeah, this is more fundraising.
yeah.
Now, if you had businesses paint their logo on the window and give you $50, that would be like,
So,
Interesting on
yeah.
that promote the use of drugs, because Columbus has that one sign right next to their scoreboard for the dispensary or whatever they're called now.
They
Oh, really?
Yeah,
They do.
yeah, and I don't think that
Well, if we had some in the policy,
The
we'd have the
conversation-
ability to turn it down. Maybe we
the
don't.
conversation, I think, was like they didn't have the, you know.
They didn't have the ability to say no.
And we also have, number 9 says promote any religious or political organizations, and we do have a couple of churches up there, which I'm fine with.
I don't want to see any more political ads of any kind for the rest
So
of
you
the
have a problem if John Tester came up here and wanted to put up?
I wouldn't, if he wants to pay for it, go.
I'd have a problem.
So, yeah, we'll put it on
Give
upside
us
down.
$5,000.
I think the only time we would have a problem with this if, and you see these stories nationally where, you know, yes, we have a couple churches in there, when we have the Church of Satan come in and want to do a banner and we tell them no,
Yeah.
then they're gonna say, well, then you have to take those others down too,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah. But I
It's
also,
dispensary stuff that kind of I don't know if that's a good thing. I
It's
don't
kind
know
of
how you
common
say no.
sense.
Yeah.
Well,
You might as well have Anheuser-Busch
Mhm.
in there because it's-
Yeah,
no one under 21 can use cannabis, so
Mhm.
it's irrelevant for the school. The tax write-off for them, but
but maybe that's the way we do it. And that's not our community standard, is what it says.
Mhm.
yeah, there you
We
go.
are-
I think
we
you
are-
tie it
that's
back
a
up.
good-
We are the community,
Yeah.
and our community
Yeah, it's not
standard,
contemporary.
we represent the community.
Exactly, see, we don't wanna be contemporary.
I think that's a good, that community.
I like that, because I think that takes care of it. Like, it doesn't meet our community standard. Well, who's the community? The board represents the community, and we say no. No tester ads, no political ads.
So are we good with that one?
Yep, got it.
7335, personal reimbursements. I think this is the one, like where we're talking about, like the teacher buys something or somebody buys something, and they're reimbursed. So this one goes through that. This is the same as model. There's no differences here. And I think this is what is happening, correct?
So good there.
7336, on this one, so I just wanted to make sure, so ours is the same as model, except for, I just want to make sure, like ours says that we're following, state law and Montana law. Like in there, they have where you can choose to like insert state or federal, and Montana or federal,
I think Montana follows the federal.
right?
And I don't know, as far as it looks like travel allowances and expenditures, the reimbursement rate is set in Montana state law
Mhm.
for meals and things like
That
that.
would be safe.
And they can choose two options if they take their own vehicle. They can choose to have fuel reimbursed or mileage. That's for them to decide, but that again, the mileage is set by the IRS.
Mhm.
But all of the meal reimbursements are set by the state legislature. And they change every couple of years, but so if I ask them, if this happens, people will turn in a receipt, and if their lunch costs more than the state reimbursement, they're only allowed the state reimbursement.
Mhm.
So,
And I know with lodging, that comes up with us all the time because there are exceptions in Montana for like Bozeman versus Baker for lodging.
Oh, yeah.
The
And
hotel
out-of-state is
differentials
different.
Flathead
and out of
Yeah.
state is different.
yeah, there's a
Flathead,
different rate, yeah.
You don't get the $89 per night per diem.
You might get it if you're gonna buy a place for that. You're gonna go-
But we don't do a flat per diem. Everything's reimbursement.
So ours is okay?
I think so, yeah, I just wanted to double check. So then we have, 7,400 credit card use. So we have, so 7,400 is credit card use, and we don't have that, and then 7,405 is procurement cards. And we don't have that one,
Okay, so we no longer have credit cards, but we have
the procurement card.
Mhm.
Okay, so the credit card use one would not be applicable,
we
right?
just switched last year
Okay,
from credit cards to P cards.
but then 7,405 is one that we should look at.
Did we not put that policy in place this year? I thought we did.
What's the limit that you have on the people?
The highest P card limit is 5,000,
Can you go in and adjust that? Yeah, I thought,
which is nice because the credit cards, we couldn't do that. And so, for instance, we have FFA going to nationals.
buy plane tickets, you have to adjust.
So we've already paid for the plane tickets, but they won't pay for their lodging until they get there. Well, that's $2,800. That would have maxed out our previous credit cards. And just today, we had a P cards quarterly Zoom call, and I had her review, okay, how do I go in and change this, because they're gonna need more than $5,000 if they're spending $3,000 on just their rooms. And it used to be, in the past, advisors would just, pay for expenditures on their own credit cards and get reimbursed. But now we have new advisors in a couple of different areas, and they may not have the ability to do that. So, like,
I know they did that in Billington, you know, if you had a big one, if we went on a big trip, and it's like, we got a lot of money to spend.
yeah,
And so you go talk to the clerk and they go,
Yeah.
okay, we'll raise it, what do you need?
Yeah.
This much.
yeah, and so we do that, which is really nice with the P cards.
And then when you're done with that, went right back down
Yep,
to your.
we change it right back, yep.
So do we wanna put not to exceed 5,000, if we're gonna use the recommended one? It also asks how many cards you have.
You probably wouldn't have to put a number in there.
Well, I think the number that they're
It's
looking
not a required
for
law. You
is the
Yeah.
can
total,
Max that whole line.
not per card. So it says
Oh.
district has blank cards with a credit limit not to exceed, so that's the
The total,
the total limit that the district has
do you have a number?
for credit.
Well, you could just put it in.
I don't think we need that
I
line.
don't think we need it.
Yeah,
Can you just take that out?
Do we? I
I
mean,
think you
we
can.
can't raise the limit either way without a board vote.
I think you just take that line, you mean, take the whole line out.
They just not include line 12.
mm-hmm,
That makes it easier.
I mean, as inflation hits and
Because as soon as that
well, yeah, that's
changes,
gonna fluctuate.
oh, we have a new
Yeah.
position, or we need to give the driver's ed a P card for gas, or
Yeah. I think we
whatever,
should just
now
get
we're
rid
not
of
in policy.
We have 10 cards, now we need 2 more.
Yeah.
Other than that, it looks okay?
I think so.
7405?
Yeah, so our max is 50,000, that's the total school.
Amongst all the
credit.
cards.
Amongst all
And then you
the
can
cards.
Monthly.
play with it.
Yes,
Unless you put in the 50,000 and say the district has procurement cards. You just go put a number. I
That'll
don't care
work.
how many cards, just
That
take
would
out,
work.
Yeah.
take the brackets out and put the S in. We have procurement cards, total limit's 50,000,
Yeah.
period.
I don't think,
Or either
Well,
that or
we
take
already
the
have-
line out.
I just take the line out.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, we have procurement cards because we have this policy.
You don't think you have to have that?
And the board of trustees permits the use of procurement cards.
To exclude line 12.
Yeah.
Easier than just delete.
Mm-hmm.
and then we don't have to change it if we do end up
Otherwise, we'd
needing
be
to
updating it
increase the
every year.
limit and all that, so.
Yeah. Okay, so adopt with the exclusion of line 12. 7425 extra and co-curricular funds, that is the same as model. But we don't have 7425F, the class fundraising notice. I don't know if we need that.
Don't you already have a form that people fill out for that?
Yeah,
I mean, they've always had something, you can't just go start raising funds, you have to get approval.
Well, they get approval, but there's not really a form.
Say less is more.
It talks about funds raised through donations, when the kids go out and say, can you help us fund this trip?
well, and
We need that.
maybe
But they're not
it'd be
gonna-
easier to make
they're
up
not
our own
And they're not
form.
gonna do that without approval anyway, and there's
Yeah.
always a fundraising form that you turn into the office. You
Mhm.
know, the man has to approve, or clerk has to approve.
I guess I don't get what the purpose of this form is.
It's just a notice.
Well, I think,
Not much of a form.
yeah, I think the key part of it is in that first paragraph, that first sentence in one, funds raised through donations will be public funds. So like when a class, raises funds, if they have money left over at the end of that, the school cannot write a check back to those students.
No.
They choose to donate that to a different fund within the school. and they all know that.
Been like that forever.
Yeah, and so I think that's probably the part here where, and we have had, questions come up with that, with scholarship donation. Well, this kid didn't go, I want my money back.
Yeah.
Technically,
Do you?
we've had discussions about it in the past, and luckily we're moving scholarships to somebody else, because that does get tricky when somebody personally donates. But yeah, this sets it out very clear, where we didn't have this policy before, so we had to have a discussion about it.
So would this be beneficial in those kind of situations? And I know like there's been other questions that have come up, like with middle school student council and that kind of stuff. So would this be beneficial? Or for us to create our own form that's less words? There's a lot of words.
That's
It's a lot of words that I don't know that are
I guess I'm just
necessary.
caught up on it says the class of, so this is just specifically related to
Class
classes.
fundraising, yeah.
There's so much more.
an organization.
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
organizations too have, and why don't they
Yeah.
have a form?
So number 4 is interesting because that applied to, when our 5th graders, their trip to Yellowstone got canceled.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
raised all of this money, and so now that money travels with that class until they have thousands of dollars.
Hmm.
Because it,
Yeah.
and it didn't,
Is
you
that
know,
the 8th grade class?
is it 8th grade this year?
Because Dale didn't
Ninth
go, I
grade.
wonder if it was 8th.
So 4 years ago, so it would be 9th grade this year, so it's 5th grade that
Because Dale
goes.
didn't get to go.
Yeah,
He's 8th.
It was shut down for 2 years.
Yeah,
But
2
the
years.
first
One
grade
year
actually
actually
fundraised.
That's why I didn't raise it.
Yeah, they just didn't fundraise.
Yeah,
It-
and
So I think you need to split.
yeah, so that money has to stay with that class,
Heck of a senior trip.
right?
Well, that, they don't have to do a lot of more fundraising.
No, I actually do like that number 1 statement when it says there are public funds, you know, that the kid, it's just tricky, you know, they're not entitled to, it's not their money personally, so to speak.
Yeah, it
Could we
belongs
look
to
at the
their,
form, because
Yeah.
we require organizations to fill out a form. If you're gonna sell FFA approved, they've always filled out a form. We just modify the form and make sure we put that in. I think there's a lot of extra stuff on here maybe we don't.
All remaining funds will be,
I mean, that statement I think is good, but I don't know.
well,
if
and
we
they
need
get to
that.
choose where it goes when they're done with it. If they don't choose, then it goes into the J Club fund, which is, you know, all kids are part of the J Club. And so that's kind of been the policy up to this
I kinda like
point.
this, actually, the more that I read it.
Unless you change from class trips to classes or organizations, because you have to include any group, or just school groups or something. This just talks about classes.
Yeah, and number 5 is interesting because I had a kid who graduated during COVID. And obviously the parents had done a bunch of fundraising throughout the year, but everything was shut down. And so everything that the senior parents raised, they took that money that because it's not deposited at the school, it's totally separate. They took that to the bank and did cash carts for all the kids for them to take to college or whatever, because they couldn't have their party. There were no public gatherings at all. But the funds that was in their class fund did, you know, they weren't able to take that out as cash just because graduation was different.
They didn't get that back.
No,
Because we've done that, with my kids, they did that. Parents would go out and raise money and it was separate from the school.
yeah, it's completely,
You could buy phone cards.
I think this
That's
also
hard.
protects, because I think there's maybe a little bit of a difference in fundraising for an extracurricular activity, because you're making an active choice to be a part of that. Kids, by no choice of their own, are a part of the class, right? And they're, have a say in the spending of that money if you're raising it as a class. I think we did have this come up, like, I don't want to go on the senior trip, but
Yeah.
yet you're taking my funds they're not really yours though, they're the class's funds. And, so I'd rather actually have a $40 reimbursement.
Yeah, and
And I
that.
think
that
this
can
actually
count.
covers that pretty
Yeah.
good.
But I mean, it's the same with BPA, you know, and FFA and.
Yeah.
and
I
honor
fundraise, but
band.
I'm not going to nationals, so,
I'm not going, or, you know, it still states that the money is not yours. I raised all this FFA group, now I can't go, I want my share. No, that's not a class, that's an organization. So I still think it should be classes and or some,
Mhm.
any student group in the school.
Maybe anybody that has an activity fund. But it's gonna be, that language is a little different. 'Cause it's
Weird language.
Specifically kind of the class. The more that I read this one though, again.
and there are
I like it,
we do have different policies, right, on
Yes.
fundraising.
yes.
And the different organizations and clubs and things like that.
Mhm.
Maybe it'd be covered in those.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is specific for a reason.
This is class fundraising.
Yeah.
Yeah, specifically related to that.
Let's do it.
There are, in the coach's handbook, some fundraising guidelines. 26, and there's like four pages of that. They've got outlines some procedural stuff, but my thinking is on 7425F that we should go for it and get all of them for everybody that has an account. Do you open up an account, like the kindergartners have a class account yet?
No,
When does that typically
once they
start?
start or having money. So like,
Usually fifth
so
grade.
it's middle school where they have a class account because that's when they start with the Blue Book sales.
Yep.
Expedition Yellowstone has its
Because it
own,
has its own account.
its own
That
account.
1 year is different. 'Cause
Yeah, that 1 year is different. We transferred money out of Expedition
You created an
Yellowstone
account for
to
that.
that, yeah. So I had to go back and look at what
Yeah.
that group had raised and separate that out.
So on the activities, take rid of 3 pages, see 7425 up.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad to have this.
I
We've even
like
had
it.
parents say, well, my kid's not participating in this, so
Yeah.
we shouldn't have to fundraise, or we should be able to just take the cash, and this kind of gets rid of all that.
Adopt?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So what was that, 74?
7425 F. So then 7430, financial reporting and audit, is the same. 7500, property records, that is the same. 7510, capitalization policy for fixed assets is the same. 7515, the GASB 54, yeah. That one, I just had a question on. So somewhere in here it references 2%. Oh,
Minimum fund
minimum
balance.
fund balance. The school district will strive to maintain a minimum unassigned general fund balance of 2% of the annual budget. So that was something, like, we had to put a number in there.
And we typically, so you're allowed a certain amount of reserves. And typically have full reserves, whether that's, and that shows on the budget sheet, whether it's 10% or 20%, that number is set by OPI of the max that you can have in there, but the minimum also helps when you're going to look at bond funding. When they look at your rates, if you have full reserves, that's gonna get you a better rate, you're a better credit risk, so.
But this wouldn't be, I get what you're saying with the reserves, and I remember seeing those on that budget sheet, but this isn't referring to like 182 or
No,
something
this
like
is
that,
general
when
fund
the minimum
balance.
assigned.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is general fund balance. And the reason that you want those reserves high is, you have, taxes don't come in until the end of November. So you need cash to pay for all those expenditures from July 1 until you get your tax money. You get some state money, but the big bulk of it comes from, when those property taxes come in on November 30th. And so those reserves help your cash sustain you for those 5 months.
So then my other question was the stabilization agreements. We have none. And I just wanted to make sure that that was also correct. Okay. So then that policy is fine as reviewed.
7515.
7515, yeah.
Got it.
7520 is the same as model. 7525 just has a typo. There's a word in there, LASE.
Lays.
Yeah, it should be law.
So can we update the model? Just
Yeah.
from
So 7530, procurement of supplies or services. So in there, it has, a couple of statements that we can choose from. It looks like we chose the second, that we adopt the following provisions of Montana Procurement Act. So we have 1 and 2, but in the model, they have number 3 there. And I didn't know if that was, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand like if that was something that we could leave out or if that was something that was added to the policy and we just hadn't updated. It was cancellation of invitation for bids.
Sometimes those help you with the discrimination stuff. If you've got 3 bidders,
Yeah.
Clark is 180,000, Ken's 175, and I'm at 60. I'm like, well, quite a bit below average bid. It's the lowest bidder, but it's in the best interest of the school to maybe spend a little bit more and get more qualifying or use of, if you don't specifically state that you want this brand of smart boards,
Mm-hmm.
and they're coming from Temu, it's like, no, might be the lowest bid, but it's best interest of the school that we're not replacing
Yeah.
those every 2 weeks.
And I think
And ours
that-
says lowest
I
responsible.
think that is that
Yeah.
a lowest responsible bid that you don't always have to take.
Yeah,
The
it's not
lowest.
always the lowest, it's
Yeah.
lowest responsible.
Well, this, number 3 is a cancellation of the invitation for bids or request for.
Mm-hmm.
So if we put out and say, we're asking for proposals to build a bus barn, and then we say, crap, we don't have money. We're gonna cancel the bid, you can't have the contract come back saying, you already put it out, I give you the best bid.
You got it.
Well,
It doesn't
and-
matter, it's still don't have to
And
accept.
at that point, the board can just say, we're not accepting any bids.
That's,
We're not gonna
I think
accept
this
any
just, that's what this is covering. is
Yeah.
that Cancellation.
But once you advertise, so you have to advertise all of your bids. So in order to cancel that, then you also have to pay for advertising to cancel it.
So we could just say, we don't want to take any,
Yeah, just say, we're not accepting any of these bids.
don't have to give a reason?
wait the 2-week deadline and then say,
Yeah, you
no,
wait
we're-
for the bid
we ran out
process
of
to,
money.
and you review them and you say, at this time, we've decided not to do this project.
Then we don't need
Because
that.
there's no commitment.
Yeah, you're just
Until-
receiving bids. That just seems like a giant waste of money to me, but bigger schools may have other options.
So you don't think we need that number 3 in there?
Go down and I guess. It essentially says the same thing in MCA, so I don't.
And maybe if you have a longer bidding process, rather than just, 30 days, if you're opening bids for several months, I can see how this would be beneficial.
If we get to that point.
That's what I was just thinking, if we get to that point, maybe readdress.
We'll go back and look at the policy. If the something's coming up, I don't think it's gonna come up.
So Mark has reviewed.
Okay.
75, where am I at? 7535 is the same as model, electronic signatures. And then, 7550 is the same as model as well, indirect cost reimbursement. And then we do not have 7625, use of enhanced tax credit receipts.
Hey, just quickly, sorry, Amanda. On 7550, Felicia, can you make a note of this? It says, prior to the end of each budget year, the superintendent or business manager will present to the board at a regular special meeting information regarding the amount of indirect cost reimbursements.
Yeah, do.
So if we get one, let's just make a note that.
Well, we have to apply for indirect costs through our grants. We don't do any of that because our indirect costs aren't, we would receive enough reimbursement to make the process of requesting that worth it.
Okay.
Bigger schools, yes, they do that.
Okay.
So like Huntley Project, who has tons of federal grant money, they apply for indirect costs, which basically pays time for their clerk, time for their superintendent, time for their grant writer, manager. That's what those indirect costs are for. Ours are so low that it's not even, I would rather use, because it takes money away from your grant.
Mhm.
It has to be a portion of it. So I'd rather use the grant money for the purpose instead of paying for minimal indirect costs.
I don't use indirect costs for my grants at work either,
Yeah,
because it just takes away from your big
Yeah.
number.
Yes.
So,
now if we had a grant writer, and could, we're getting way more money in, then that would justify those indirect costs.
So use of enhanced tax credits, it's our last one, and then we're through 7,000.
Do we get that?
So I think this is referring to the new portal that they created and they opened up, I don't even know what the number was this year. I think they opened up $500,000 of kind of like tax deductible donations to schools.
It was gone in 8 minutes.
Most of it was, yeah, most of it was sucked up by like big donors in like the Flathead Valley.
Oh, yeah,
And they just
yeah.
chunked it in. We did put something up on our Facebook page that said this is available. We had a
Yeah.
form, so we probably do need the policy. I think the better way to do it now, though, is in partnership with the Jayhawk Fund. If that thing kind of gets up and rolling, to just
Yeah.
move big
Funneled
donations
in there
through.
because there's not,
They're a nonprofit.
yeah, you don't have to sit there and click,
That's
like
right.
within the 5 minutes that,
But my recommendation would be let's grab this policy.
Thanks for
reading all the ones.
Excellent.
They're the same.
Excellent work.
Yeah.
What time did you say you had to leave?
5:20. I got 9 minutes.
Right? All right.
Yeah, by the time I pack up, shut that off.
All right,
We done?
meeting adjourned.
Sweet.
Thank you, everyone.
Meeting done. All right.